Of course, trust, communication, sex, everything else, attraction, right? And this, I think that's a part of attraction, right? That's emotional and social intelligence, is being a good negotiator.
Totally. And that requires empathy, right? Like that requires
Yeah,
emotional
empathy,
intelligence. And
vulnerability, the ability to, and this is what I love about my girlfriend too, is she makes me look at myself. She'll bring up the things that I might be doing in not the best way, right? And I'll be like, oh yeah, well, it's hard to look at sometimes, where sometimes I find a spin to a story um, to emphasize my point, and I might over exaggerate that or something, right? And I know that I'm doing it, and I'll look at it and I'll be like, you're right, I'm doing that, I'm doing that thing. And I love that, and that makes me a better person. And so not a lot of people being okay with looking at yourself when your partner says something that might show a flaw in you, is something that's a very emotionally intelligent thing to have in your tool belt, I think.
so how does she do it? How does she say, you're
Yeah,
silly? Or what
that's
does she do?
exactly what she says. She looks at me, she winks, and she says, "You're silly," and then I just get it. Um, no, she'll tell me. She'll be like, "Hey, I feel like you're spinning the words a little different here," or "I don't believe that's what happened." And I think sometimes you embellish the story, or you exaggerate a story to make a point sometimes, and it makes me feel, whatever. She'll go into that. She'll just tell me straight up, and that's great. That's something I've been working on and looking at. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes I do it for humor, and I use exaggeration and embellishment, and
And you're
where
like,
it's obvious,
honey, you just
right?
ruined my joke.
Right. But if we're having an argument, and sometimes, or I feel I maybe stretch or I reach for why I might have said something. I'm trying. Sometimes when I'm trying to make a point, I pull all these different angles to try to come up with different things to figure myself out. And sometimes it sounds like I'm throwing the book at someone or something. And so it's all about communication. It's all about letting people know, that calling people out in a nice way. And I don't want to say the word nice, but calling someone out in a respectful way um, can be very useful. you know yes, commitment, honesty, and I think telling the truth is something we all work on all the time, everybody, in every situation. And the truth is interesting. It's nice to have truth. I was just listening to this talk. Who was it? It was about truth. I think it was probably Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure. um, Maybe, but it's
Something
an I.
about the truth.
Yeah, well, yeah. There you go.
Truth will be used to slay the dragon.
That's right. I fucking love that guy. Um, I love him. But something that was said, I think it was him who was saying this, was number one, the truth. The more you tell the truth, the more interesting your life will be, right? Usually when you don't tell the truth, it's to maintain, it's not rocking the boat, right? It's not, you're just trying to keep the boat on the dock and safe, right? But if you tell the truth, you might get somewhere, and it's intriguing, and it can take you to very interesting places. But also,
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like if you I tried a week of extreme honesty once. Um it got my I got a girlfriend to break up with me. Um
nice.
um but I that was something interesting. Something I learned a lot from that, right? Like, and I also learned a lot about my values at that moment, right? Like, oh, obviously, like I think I would have done things more tactfully now, as an old, me 8-9 years down the road or whatever. I think I would have done things differently in that situation with my ex-girlfriend. But like telling the truth, you feel like so much more free. You told the truth. You said, you say how you're feeling, and if you don't agree, it with somebody, it like creates discussion, and like that's when people can get really intimate, when you are being assertive and just kind of like, you know, like nonviolent communication of openly inviting discussions with people and saying, well, you know what, I don't think it's really like this, and here's my opinion why, and here are the reasons. You have such a deeper level of complexity to your conversations and a deeper level of like trust with the people that you're talking to, because that person trusts you to tell the truth, and now they feel like they can open up and talk to you in a certain way. So you like speed up, you like put on turbo mode for your relationships, like especially if they're newer relationships, you get deeper with people.
Totally.
And yeah, as you know, more shit ends up happening because of that.
Yeah,
Like,
the truth is exciting.
tell your girlfriend you want to anal, and like it starts to plant that seed in her butt, you know, it just starts planting the seed, and eventually it might
Well,
be
you're
birthday
planting the
comes
seed, yeah,
around.
but I don't know if it's fertile ground.
I mean, that's, you know, you're just being truthful, right? Like you're just
Right. It's true. And yeah, what I was, the thing that was really cool about truth was, yeah, that didn't throw us off at all.
sorry.
No, it's awesome. Um, is um, is truth? Well, this is a kind of a visual thing that I was getting at with truth, is that when you have truth, you have reality backing you up, right? I mean, think about that. When you have truth, you have what really happened in reality is in your corner, right? But when you don't tell the truth, you're fighting reality. I mean, there's so much of reality. So there's a million angles that it'll just smother you in, right? So like the lie will come up in this way or that way, or 5 years down the road, or 10 years, or in your subconscious, right? So with truth, you have all this massive weight with it that's on your side,
Right.
you know? So
Right.
it's like, so it's nice. It's nice to have that behind you. It's like that reality is in my corner, right?
And that's where
Kind of a cool way of
that's
looking
where
at it.
like there's not like a long term, like when it comes to like things like spinning a narrative for political gain or some sort of influence over people, right? I think that's very short-sighted, right? When you are spinning something or you're not using the truth fully. You know, there are ways to tell the truth and make things interesting, but you know, if you're changing the facts to fit, you know, some sort of manipulation that you want, whether it be as simple as like, I just don't want to make waves with people, right? Like I don't want somebody to get mad at me for having a different opinion, so I'm gonna like omit information, right? Like I think I think that's very short-sighted, because you know, thinking about it, like with that example, right? Like I want this person to like me, so I'm not really going to tell my full opinion. Well, you want that person to like you, so you're trying to develop a relationship, which means that could go well into the future. If that person doesn't like you, uh, like for who you are, you're going to have so much pressure on you to be somebody that you're not, and then eventually it could all come crashing down when they find out who you truly are, and they're going to feel betrayed and lied to, and like it's coming out of nowhere. and
Right.
and so the truth, like, you know, even, you know, we see this all the time with like, you know, the current you know, events, right? We see this with like the media trying to spin the truth or trying to like uh omit facts and stuff, just to get a reaction. And this has been happening for several years, and now people are hating the media. Now people are hating, you know, like there's still people hang on to it, but like people, we're having people who are who are turning very radically in different directions, politically or just like personally, around the information that they receive. And that's why I think that's why we like have people who are like flat earthers, right? Like because they're like, well, I've been betrayed so many times that like I'm just going to say that I believe the world is flat, or
Right.
I'm going to believe somebody else who puts things into a different way. And maybe the flat earthers who actually believe what they're saying, they're not it's not that they're not being truthful, it's that they believe, they have conviction, right? So I'm gonna listen to these people. These people at least are upright, upstanding, in a way. They have some sort of ethics around, the way that they give their information, whether that information
Yeah.
is right or not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think it all comes back around. And in the case of the media, we're slowly putting the media in our hands, right? Which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
As these new social platforms come out, we're becoming the news.
cable
And
cutting, Twitter,
right. I
or even
mean,
just I only listen to my friends, like word of mouth, right?
yeah, or you research your own and you experience your own and you put it out there. I mean, there's only a few big news media outlets left that are considered real news outlets, and so and those are probably hanging on by a thread, trying to do they're turning
But at
into
least,
talk shows. Half of
yeah,
the news channels are just turning into talk shows.
it's no longer news. It's just media. It's not news media. It's just media,
Right.
right? It's like we're going to talk about current events and give 90% opinion,
Right.
and put a spin on it, create the narrative. Like I don't even follow the stuff anymore because like, well, one, it just create like most of it is just meant to make you mad or upset or in some way it's going to cause. There's never any news that's like, except for local news, like local news stations, right, that are just service a small community. That's cool. They'll be like, oh, here's a farmer with a pig that he named Daisy, and it has and it wears hats, right? Like they'll do like some cute little
I love
story.
Daisy. I
Those are
remember
nice,
Daisy.
right? Yeah, right. Like like local news will do that and you'll see like the feel good stories, but like you go on to any of the big stuff like CNN or whatever, you're just hearing stuff that's like terrible, right? They love disasters, they love talking about disasters and plane crashes and hurricanes and stuff. They love creating tension with um like this guy. I haven't really followed this, but the Ahmaud Arbery guy who got shot by two guys in like Georgia or something, or I don't know, some I
Mm.
think it was a southern state. He was like on this construction site. He was a black guy, and these two other guys tried to like citizens arrest him with guns, and then he like fought them off or something, and they shot him and killed him. And
Yeah.
there's like all this information coming from different sides, and like the whole story is flipping back and forth, and it's just creating more relevance as like more information comes in. More information makes more people mad, right? Like I've had friends who like the day that it came out, they were like, justice for Ahmad, and then I had like 2 days later I see friends on Facebook saying, hey, wait, hold on, he was actually like running from a burglary or something, like he burgled somebody or something like that. And
Whoa.
like, and then it goes back and forth, and it just people are doing this to get their own like clout, their own like following and their own political gain and stuff like that. And like I don't know the truth. Like, like
Yeah.
I don't know the truth, and I'm not going to know the truth. And like it sucks that somebody died, for sure, right? Like it sucks that this guy died, and like but I don't know the whole details. I don't know the whole details. I'm not going to judge it. And I think the problem is too, like a lot of the narrative is about like if you don't make a snap judgment on this, you're a problem too, right? If you don't make the judgment based on the feelings, like, oh hey, if you're not saying that he needs, like, this guy needs justice, you're like, it's like because I have white privilege, and because he's a black guy or something. And like I understand that, like that's fucked up, but I just don't like that type of stuff. Or even there's another story that people were going back and forth with. Oh yeah, you remember like the Jussie Smollett guy?
Mm-hmm.
He was that actor who like got beat up by like some Trump supporters, but it turned out the Trump supporters were people who were like who were like
Hired by
hired
him or
by him.
something.
And like so it's just going back and forth. It's like, what the fuck is the truth? You know, like
Right.
ultimately this guy had like a good intention to like to send a message to people, but like he did something in a shady way. He did it in a very shady way. Like he didn't tell a story, he like created a story. He like
Right.
contrived
It
it.
was all a lie.
Yeah. And like,
Right. It came out. It eventually comes out. And
yeah, and I don't know how it affected him and his career or anything, but it definitely split people, right? It created a dichotomy of people who will align with the people who still think he was in the right for whatever, or even though they know he lied, they're going to be like, well, you know, this is an important thing to talk about, and then the people who are like, but he lied, and so it's creating this
right.
false dichotomy of like you're on two different sides, but it's like, look, like the truth is he did a bad thing and he was pointing fingers and like trying to tell a story about something that's wrong in America at the same time, right? Like, so like he had a good intention, but he did the wrong thing. Like he did something bad, and it was kind of
Who
stupid,
knows? Yeah. I mean,
you
who
know.
knows
And
what really the intention is?
yeah, and we don't know the intention, but like that's what it seemed like, right? Like he wanted to, you know, he wanted to basically send a message about like how this is something that happens to people based on their race or their beliefs or whatever. And I just think it's like it's, you know, that's the truth thing
Wasn't
is
he
like, why
upset
don't
about his contract or something?
I
Didn't
don't
he?
even know. See, like
That's
I
what
don't
I
know,
heard.
and you know what? It doesn't really affect me in my
It's
personal life. So
just, it's amazing how, yeah, we can read stories from all these different angles and there's so many different opinions, and it's hard to just, it's hard to distill what the real truth is. It's hard to get the lesson from it sometimes, or maybe sometimes the lesson is when you make your own and you don't even know that if you know what's right, and so it's maybe it's learning to be open and look at all sides, and then really, who knows. It's
or maybe
it's a
it's
it's
we
it's a mess.
shouldn't
It's a mess
even
on
deal with people outside of our local communities
That's
unless
a
they're
really
doing
big
something
thought.
something
See,
absolutely
yes,
abhorrent.
it's something that I argued a lot of, and everyone gets mad at me for that. Is people ask me about what I think about politics, and I'm like, I'm not really that interested, in like I have one vote, and and I'll learn as much as I can, and maybe use my vote. But people spend massive amounts of time reading and learning and watching the news and discussing politics on the high level from these people they've never met in Washington, D.C.
I get so stressed out about it too.
And they get so, it's like it rocks people to their closest belief system, and they think these people represent their belief system, where um I think focusing on fixing yourself first, focusing on the small group of people that are around you,
Clean your room.
focusing. That's right. Yeah, this is a Jordan Peterson thing. Um, Focusing on yourself. I mean, it's not just he. It's not like he made that up, right? It's about really focusing. This goes way back. Focusing yourself, and then helping one. When you're ready, you help one person that's close to you. You help another person. I had a blog about this on jaunty.org, about, and then you start working on maybe your community, and then you can help others and teach them, which is what me and you are trying to do now. But we all it's so easy, like we're yelling at people on TV. We're yelling at the TV for someone who is in DC, who we think controls our happiness. you know um I mean, if you're in the United States, or if you're in a Western culture, you you have, I mean, it's a little bit different in quarantine, but you have enough freedom. You have enough freedom, or so we think or feel, to do the things you want. You can start a business. You can meet people. We have the technology to meet anybody that wants to meet us back, right? We used to be able to talk to anyone and create friends group, and this is why Jaunty is so important. Is you create a really strong community or friends group, and if everyone had that and they were comfortable in their own skins and had like that internal frame and status, bringing it full circle to the beginning of this conversation, I think they would yell at the TV less. I think they would not let those things affect them as much, if they were more, if their subjective well-being was greater within themselves, you know.
Right.
I mean, this goes along with almost everything in life. Like, you usually project internal issues on other people that are around you. You project it on your boss. You project it on your, even some friends, or you project it on the others, right? Like the left or the right, and usually the problem is within. Um, I don't see people who are really happy with themselves get angry at
Totally. At
at
anybody.
people they don't know.
People who are killing it, like, they're having a great
They're
life.
not angry
I'm not
at
angry at.
people they don't know. You
Yeah.
know, it's like people that are angry at people they don't know are angry at themselves.
Yeah, and they're wishing that their life was better, and they're also, maybe jealous, or projecting, yeah, looking for that other person, looking at that other person as like a scapegoat. And
Right.
sometimes you can be angry at your own life, or sad about your own life for things that are out of your control. Like, I totally get that, but you know what you can control is how you respond to things, I think.
Yeah, that's
um
emotional intelligence.
yeah. And like, when you get knocked down, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to get back up again, or are you going to pull somebody else down with you?
Right.
And I think that's what, like, truly defines your character. I have a lot of friends right now from who I grew up with, from my hometown, that I've been friends with since like high school and middle school and stuff. And they're currently, so this group of friends I haven't really been super in contact with over the years. I have two really good friends who are in this group, and they all keep in touch by playing video games together. They have a Discord server, and they play video games online with each other, because a lot of them moved away, and all that. And I guess there's like a group of 20 of them, and I guess like most of them got laid off because of the coronavirus. And like, what I'm seeing, just by being like tangentially related, I'm seeing that that a lot of them are very depressed. Not that they weren't already, but it's getting worse, and it's letting them, they're getting stressed about things that are political. And stuff like, they're posting up stuff in that Discord about like participating in a rent strike and doing this. And I talked to my friend, a month ago, about month and a half ago, about this whole thing about the shelter in place and my stresses about it. And he's like, well, we're gonna strike on the rent. And I was like, well, have you talked to your landlord? And he's like, well,
Right.
no.
Oh
I'm like,
man.
well, why don't you talk to your landlord and see if they can, like, be forgiving before you even force them to do something using governmental power, or using some sort of, other type of, like a strike or something like that. Right? Like, it's kind of sad
Wow.
that, like, you can't think about like the next step of how that can help you. You have to think about, like, about forcing somebody else to endure this, right? Like, let's say everybody, every landlord should have to pay their property taxes, their insurance, and everything, and not have the income from their properties. Now it's like, it just trickles back up to like, it's still going to cause people pain, and you're just pushing the
Right.
pain onto somebody else temporarily. And and like, if we're all in pain together, like, you might as well console each other and be like, hey, Mr. Mrs. Landlord, I'm actually going through a really rough time right now. I lost my job and all this. What can we do about this? Right? And
Right.
like, this is assertiveness 101, right? Like, this is inviting dialogue and saying, hey, I've got an issue and I need help. What are the options here? And like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think embedding the step of cooperation ahead of like us against them, or um, trying to get leverage, over leverage someone, or get into battle mode, can really help. I mean, it's I had this conversation with our landlord and owners, and they've been, we live in this group, kind of, we work for living type situation down here, and we had this, and they were very understanding, and like we negotiated some stuff, and so um, cooperation is a great first step. You'd be really surprised how people will be willing, if you're kind and communicative with them, and caring, and like assertive, and respectably assertive, but exactly, inviting dialogue. I've gotten so many invites, and I've learned so many things just by taking that high road step before um, getting nasty, or going to the dark side, or using that, right? It's like you have that, and that primal emotional need always wants to fight and come out and win. But if you can control that, you'd be a force to be reckoned with communication. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like taking it as a community first kind of thing, right? It's like you're looking at looking at your landlord and as somebody who's a part of your community, and you have a symbiotic relationship, versus looking at your landlord as some sort of leech on you, or like, or somebody who's got a power position because they have money or because they have capital or whatever. Like looking at, or like business owners, or like the the buzzword to throw around as something negative is a CEO nowadays, right? Like you see that on social media. People are like, the CEOs, if we just tax them more, we people would be able to afford stuff. And this is like, no, what? Like these are like, if you obviously these people have never owned a business. So,
right.
nor do they know enough about like tax laws and like personal finance that like Jeff Bezos does not have billions of dollars in the bank, like
Right.
but like the idea of like thinking of things adversarially, when you can think about it, it's like, okay, well, this person is like winning in some sort of way, and I want to be a part of this. Or maybe that we have this relationship that there's now a tension that is outside of ourselves, right? Like there's this coronavirus thing, I got laid off from my job, and it's outside of the relationship between me and my landlord. Well, now I need to bring this up to that person so that I can work something out. This is a cooperative relationship rather than because that's what it is. Once you get into a contract with that person, like it's a cooperative relationship. It's not, they're going to provide you the place to live and you're going to provide them money. Well, if something happens where you can't provide them money anymore, you can provide some sort of other value. You can make a negotiation, make an agreement. You can, they might be able to work with you, and you don't know that until you try it.
Right.
And if they're a total asshole, then like, I'm sorry, but not
There's plenty
everybody.
of services you can offer
Yeah.
to get the rent covered. All right. And on that note, I think that's part 1 of our series.
Yeah.